in the previous video with the hourglass and being out of time with double eight, well, that pretty much describes itself of being out of time, of how it's been. Now we bring heaven on earth, where the tables are flipped and two become one. Well, if you think about it, I don't know if someone caught it, I didn't see any comment, but it had Ezekiel as far as out of time and being on heaven. Well, he went up in fiery chariots, the tornadoes going around, where he was lifted up because he walked with God, as Adam used to do. Well, if you think about the firmament, and then, out of time the 8, well, with John being the heavenly gift, which was on the previous, I think it's in my other book. It is. I had John with the heaven on earth, and I had Ezekiel with the dividing, the Old Testament and being out of time. And then there was a silence, and there's nothing spoken for 400 years, so a silence in heaven. Well, then you have, the Dark Ages. And this is where we know our timeline to know where we are, because there's a lot of deceivers out there trying to say we are here on a timeline when we're really caught unawares, like a thief in the night. Not that he is a thief, it's like a thief. So what we are doing now is the last deception. And everyone's falling for it. It seems like hook, line, and sinker. But thankfully, they're just as Peter, and when they are revealed the truth, they'll come around, and those hardened hearts will be broken, and they'll be given a heart of flesh. Well, what does that mean? John came in the spirit of Elijah. Well, if you think about John spoke of love, and John was called beloved, just as David was called beloved. Heaven on earth. So as far as the temple, and it's a temple not built with hands, and Jesus said he would come back, and they're looking out in the physical world, and he's like, no, the kingdom's within. Stop looking at the outward. Walk by faith, not by sight. So man describes woman as a body of an hourglass. Women bear the life, tree of life. And if you ever look at your family tree, they call it a family tree for a reason, because they come through women. And we go by man's last name, but it's all the women. It's about the women. Just like Mary was about, birthing Jesus. And if you really think about it, he went up on the Mount Moriah to sacrifice his son, but God provided a lamb for the sacrifice, because he walked by faith. Mary, she had Jesus, and she sacrificed her son, the Lamb of God. What was hidden is revealed. They're mirrors. There's mirror effects. And everybody, so afraid of Revelation, talking about, Revelation's talking about, the great deception, and that's the devil's work. No, that's God hidden in the details. But if you seek and find it, it's talking about God's kingdom, not man. God hides himself in the lightnings and the thunders, like Revelation, things that weren't to be uttered. So those things not uttered are written to see what man would do with it, because they didn't seek it from him. They sought it of their own heart. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And we already went through the man and the two types of men, and which is the husband and which one's not. So the temple not built with hands. And if you think of the pyramid, like the women, shaped like a hourglass. In the old days, they were really big about all that. It was revealed. They showed us without showing us. So if you think about your lungs, and your heart's in between, the that's part of lower heavens, and your brain being the upper heaven. Well, and then you have the firmament, and then you have the gut, and then you have the womb within that gut, and the womb is in the earth. Guts being the earth where the living waters from the belly shall flow. Your diaphragm is the firmament of heaven. And let me tell you, man says he doesn't know a whole lot about this diaphragm. And you know what? He's right. You know why? Because this right here is a great gulf fixed. And you can't get into the lower heavens and the upper heavens without permission. So your lungs or heart, which is the lower heavens, well, your breath gives you life, the breath of life that comes from the mother in the heart of the earth. Well, the heart is between the lungs. See how God's amazing? So, and in the lower heavens, like where Ezekiel was able to have that heart and understanding, and when people attacked him, just like the sons of God, he didn't make things happen. It naturally happened because God ordained it, and he uses his creation, sovereign God. And that's when the bears came out and destroyed the boys. Ezekiel didn't do it. Or not Ezekiel. Elisha didn't do it. God allowed it, just like the dogs will eat the harlot. Well, the whirlwind taken up to God's throne. Well, if you think about taking the steps up the spinal cord, you get to the upper heavens, which, by the way, they poked and prodded. And I'm sure some of you might understand what I'm talking about the throne of God, the seat of God. Wow. That was pretty ballsy of them. God wanted to see what they would do if they're just stewards. Well, I do believe we have our answer. Well, in Ezekiel, and this is a study I'm working on, is Ezekiel 10:1. It talks about the firmament above the cherubims appeared over them as a sapphire stone, appearance as a throne. Firmament, baby, right there. Woo! And it's above the cherubims. Well, we know where the cherubims are. And appeared over them as a sapphire stone. And its appearance of a throne. Well, we already know what they try to make curvature to do. And something else I'm talking about with the four faces, doing the breakdown, the merciful, upright, pure, and froward, and depending on what you've given is how you're going to be repaid. Well, it speaks of four faces, and that in Ezekiel, and it's a cherub, man, lion, and the eagle. And Ezekiel 10 talks about God's glory exits the temple. The temple not built with hands. And it made me think of in here where we did, the skin being the largest organ on the body, and talking about the water skins in a station of Israel, God prevails in the wilderness. Curve and bent. That's Obed, remember? To return, to go around. 40 years sojourned in the wilderness. Also talks about bottling our tears. So I'm sure there's some others that maybe can find some other things hidden in this. And we can go deeper in study and understanding God, because this is going to be ever ending, ever learning. That's how wonderful the Father is. And how he works in secret in the darkness, because he has to cover himself, because he doesn't want his creation destroyed. Man took Revelation literal. But if you really look at the hidden meanings of what it talks about, that's not the devil. That's God. And we are in the last few minutes. The last great deception is here. God's just revealing everything now. to bring the kingdom to earth. Remember? John came in the spirit of Elijah. Well, two witnesses, John and Elijah, coming in the spirit with fire, fiery love. That's us. They spoke of us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Love is all that's going to remain. And it could come better, none other than John, the apostle of love that understood it.